Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Jeremy, founder of quickmail.io.
Hey, and this is Jack from salesbread.com.
Today, we're going to talk about a very important topic. If you have a small market, you want to stick around. And if you don't have a small market, you also want to stick around because it's going to apply to both different ways. Do you want to sort of introduce the topic or I do it?
Yeah, so imagine you've got, actually, Jeremy, you were inspired about this topic. Go ahead and tell us what was on your mind.
Here's the thing. So I've been working with one of our marketing guy on a campaign quite a few months ago, and then the campaign went absolutely super well. But like every campaign, you end up with some people not replying. Now we have like a small target or a small segment. So we're not going after the whole market, but we find out like a small niche that is actually very, very receptive to offer. And so my marketing guys say like, hey, it's been a few months already. I'd like to hit them again. And I said, who? And he said, the people who actually didn't reply. And I'm thinking, well, that's an interesting thing. Usually, you go after other leads or you build up on the leads who already replied. So I'm thinking that inspired this episode, which is how do you go about re-engaging prospect who never replied in one of your past campaigns? And should you? That's sort of like topic of the day.
Yeah.
So if you feel yourself in these positions, like if you have less than 100% reply rate, I think that cast applies to you.
It might be relevant. There you go. So let's talk about, is it worth it? Should you do it? Pros and cons.
But before that, I'm really sorry. We have to do it, but a few words from our sponsors.
That's right. Today, most B2B companies lack the time or expertise to what? Turn cold prospects into warm leads. So at salesbread.com, we bring you one lead per day using ultra personalized cold emails and LinkedIn messages. If you want to have a brainstorming session, if you have questions, if you want a strategist, if you want to talk about what it would look like in order to make this happen, in order to get your idea out into more paying customers, head over to salesbread.com/contact and I'll give you some ideas. Worst case, you leave with some inspiration for outbound.
Love it. And on the other side, the technical side, with a super cool software called quickmail.io. Of course, I'm the founder of this tool, and it's brilliant when it comes to do cold email campaigns. And we also provide some really cool nifty tools, some for free, like the auto warmer, which will help you with your deliverability and making sure your email lands in the inbox of your prospects, and hopefully they can reply, right? Because otherwise they don't.
The auto warmer is a no-brainer.
And so that is my first point. If you're not getting enough replies, move to QuickMail and then re-engage the prospect who didn't reply, because there is a chance he didn't land in their inbox.
Yeah. So let's see. That is a good point. But going back to our topic du jour here, is it always a good idea? What are some pros and cons? Should I just go for it? Convince me otherwise. Let's say I'm a salesperson at a company. Are there any good reasons I shouldn't re-engage people that ignored me?
Yeah, of course. I would even ask you the opposite as well. So I'll do this side and I'll ask you the opposite. So yes, of course. You say should not re-engage them. Okay, so you should not re-engage them when the cost of finding new leads is much lower than the cost of re-engaging those prospects. Because it could be, for example, you have a huge market, you're going after the leads, and you have enough of them that you don't need to bother with the people who didn't reply in the first place. That's point number one. Point number two is that if you have a better system for your new leads, and then you only had like the old leads didn't have the perfect system yet to vet them, it's probably not necessarily the best way to re-engage the existing one. An example would be you realize as you go through your campaign that really the people who get the most value are the people who are working in companies between 100 and 200 employees. Then it doesn't make sense to go into contact the other leads that you tried, which are like 1 to 10 employees, or you know what I mean. It's like as you're doing your cold outreach, hopefully you get more insights, and so that may not be necessary. Other ideas maybe to not re-engage?
Jeremy, I cannot think of another reason not to re-engage. I was almost going to say if nothing new changed with your product or service, but
But
I'm
still,
scrapping that
yeah.
because the timing could just simply be right for your prospects
I
now.
got another one. Your deliverability is on the verge. Like it's not
Mm,
that great. They already didn't reply. There are more chances that they won't reply the second time, or maybe
mm,
negatively, right? So if your
mm.
deliverability is lower end, it's probably not the best
Okay.
place to carry on.
Okay. I've got one more.
We keep on ending. Funny.
Yeah, no, it's
Actually,
good.
don't do
It's
it.
good. No, I would say if your general positive reply rate is in the gutter for this list and
Oh
this
yeah,
campaign, like maybe that's a sign that you weren't on target either with your prospecting or your writing.
yeah.
Um, but okay, on the flip side, if the message resonated well with I don't know, let's call it at least 10% of your list, then there's a good indication that you're onto something here and this list warrants a follow-up, even if they ignored your first 5 messages
Yeah.
6 months ago, right? And so maybe we should talk about timing here. When does it make sense to re-engage? After a month, after 3 months? Any like set rules that you might recommend here? Or
I
should we
think
actually
yeah,
wait for an
this
event?
is a
Yeah.
great question that probably everyone is asking itself, like himself or herself. Well, everyone
Yeah.
is asking this question
Themselves. Yeah.
themselves. That's the one. It could simply be depending on how much progress you're doing, how much noise you're making in the industry. It could be everyone. Like for example, if you're Tesla, for example, and you have like a new model that comes in, then it could be like it's a very valid reason to re-engage people. Like, hey, or like you're switching segment again. If you're Tesla and you suddenly have the truck stuff, you may contact the old people who were not interested in car and say, hey, now we got an SUV or whatever, those sort of things.
You've got it.
So that could be a legitimate thing. Plus the other thing is if you keep hammering people with like sort of like new offering and how great, people will check you out. It's like, who's this guy who keeps on doing like cool stuff? Or that will naturally
That's true.
move the wheel. So I don't think there is any set rule, but if nothing changes, definitely not every week.
Yeah. Oh,
That would
that's
be
a great
bad.
point. Okay, so if a product or service of yours changes, might be time for a re-engagement. Or if an event in the industry
Yeah,
changes,
I like
might
it.
be time for
Brilliant.
a re-engagement. This could be a big conference. This could
Yeah.
be a change in the way this industry does its work. If you've been creating an unusually strong amount of hype around your brand, again, maybe new people that haven't heard from you will. And then I might say the fourth timing or trigger might be a certain number of months have elapsed since you last tried. I would probably recommend not re-engaging more than once a quarter on the more aggressive side. A little bit less aggressive is like twice a year. So every 6 months. It's probably what a lot of sales teams are doing.
Yeah, I love it. Like you say at least like three really great things. The event, like the conference stuff, is really an opportunistic point in time. It's like, hey, by the way, there's this great conference. Maybe we want to have a chat, and that's actually one of my point. Is like you will need to change the way you engage your prospect with a different value proposition one way or another. Otherwise, it's just like a follow-up email of your first sequence, which is bad.
Right. Right.
The other thing I really love that you're saying is timing. And of course, the timing may be different in every industry. It could be that everyone like have yearly contracts. And so that could be like hospital or, government or whatever things that moves very slowly
Yeah.
in terms of
Yeah.
the purchasing stuff. It could be an event like, it could be April or whatever, like new year, fiscal year type of thing, like new budgets are renewed. And those
Yeah.
sort of like points would actually be a good point for repeating if your
So
business hasn't changed.
yeah,
Right?
I've got one more trigger that I've kept playing around with, but to be honest, I've never actually put a campaign around it. I think that the idea is very attractive, but I don't have any stats for you guys right now, but I do think it's interesting. So if you're offering some sort of let's say, design service, marketing service, something front facing to the customer, there's a couple tools that will allow you to monitor websites for any design changes, copy changes. So if a website changes a headline, for example, you could get a Slack notification. I'm thinking of Hexamatic right now.
Yeah.
They're kind of and I always thought that was very interesting. You could dump in, let's say 6,000 or let's be more realistic, maybe 600 good prospects here. And you could hypothetically say, all right, I tried contacting them. Now I'm going to dump them into this monitoring tool, and I'm going to get a notification whenever they change their design in their homepage. And that's when I'm going to reach out, and I'll use that as a way to break the ice, saying, I saw that you changed the design.
I love it.
Maybe it means that you're exploring other avenues of
Is it a good
marketing,
time to?
it looks like you're doing some design work right now. Should we talk about X? I always thought that was really cool. And there's a lot of signals that you can listen for that could prompt a re-engagement. So if you try the idea and you get some feedback from it, podcast@quickmail.io is how you can share. Yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, let's do it.
You got to tell me if it works, right?
For sure.
So you can, I guess that approach would be called letting your prospects tell you when the timing is better based on some internet signal. Okay.
I like that. I got another one, if you don't mind. I'm thinking competitors signing up. So a good example would be, let's say, for example, on your list, you have, I don't know, Crispy Donut and Salty Donut, right? As two different chains. None of them reply, but it could happen at some point, or you only have like one of those two in your list that never reply, but then sometime in the future, like one of those two actually sign up. Then you could suddenly look into who's the competitor of those ones and then see they were in your list of people who didn't sign up, and then use that in your copy. Say like, hey guys, you know, we have Crispy Crispy Donuts signing up for us. You know, would Salty Donuts be interested in having conversation? I think we learned a ton about, we could help them a lot about XYZ. And I think that could be an interesting thing as well.
No, that's great. And it just requires, what would the process be for that? As a new customer comes in, you will have
more process.
Someone, you could potentially just scan your list of previously contacted anyone in this space. I love that idea because I'm sure that's going to resonate well, especially more so if they've seen your kind of pitch before. They just maybe needed a little bit of a nudge.
Yeah, that's so true.
A lot of good ideas are coming up for when you should reach out, you know, what triggers this follow-up campaign. And we know that we probably should, except for a few problems that you would want to not do a follow-up campaign. But knowing that you might reach out again, Jeremy, I'm wondering what this does to the messaging. Maybe we can talk about,
let's do the content.
What gets written in these follow-ups. So something I've been, I think always doing on these re-engagement campaigns, and it'd be interesting if you might disagree here, is I will call out that I have tried to get in touch with them before.
So funny. Yeah. I was thinking like, should we say it or should we not say it? And I'm sure, you know, a lot of our listeners are wondering. Say your arguments. I will try to have some counter arguments because I got both. And then, go ahead.
Right. So people like honesty.
Yep.
Mentioning you've reached out to them 6 months ago shows that you're serious.
Yep. Persistence, like positive persistence.
Yeah.
Ideally.
And it humanizes yourself so that you can just admit, look, I tried reaching out to get your, you know, feedback on X a couple months back. I hope you don't hate, you know, like I'm not saying you write that, but you're just calling out like, look, you're trying hard here, and it's apparent, and you're letting them know. So perhaps that earns you a couple points, so that people are less likely to say, oh my God, this guy again, you know, hit the spam or something. So those are 3 reasons why I would argue to include that. It also makes for a nice transition. If you sent them something 3 months ago, just mentioning it's me again, don't use that wording, but I think that's the right way to get back into that conversation. Right. I think I've seen that, Nicole. Anyways.
How did that go?
Bad.
Well, here's my thought process. It's a counter argument because I do agree with everything you're saying. Like, it's nice to come up front, like, but I would probably use it as a PS. Like, hey, full disclosure, we already, you know, tried to reach out to you 6 months ago, and, you know, we hear crickets or whatever. I love it in a PS, and I tell you why. Because if you put it at the beginning, Like I'm a full optimizer. So when I read the email, I look at, do they mention they already contacted me? Because I already made the mental decision, so I don't want to redo it. So when they say like, hey, we're trying to follow up on, it's like, boom, straight away, call email folder, the call email swap file folder. The reason for it is because I don't want to have to make twice the same decision. I made my decision already. If I didn't reply to the first one, it's over for them. But if they put it into
cool.
the sort of like PS stuff, or they spin it into a different way that makes me read more, then they have a better chance with me, right? And that could just be like 100% me, but like I like to optimize stuff, and so I make a very quick decision as to like, should I read the next or not? And so mentioning, it's like they're losing already.
Hey, that's great. But you think it would earn you points if they threw it in at the very bottom after you've considered?
I think it could be. It could be. It's a difficult one to say, but that's probably how I would place it, right? Instead of reminding them like, hey, you already made the decision to put me to, your spam folder or whatever, or archive you. I just want to keep on insisting. It's like, yeah, okay, done.
Yeah.
So
very interesting.
That's a counterpoint.
Okay, so let me add an asterisk here. If you were going to call out, I've reached out 6 months ago, you need to finish that sentence with something new that encouraged the second follow-up. Jeremy, 6 months ago, I reached out about X, but I just saw you redid your homepage, so I thought it might be a better time to ask. You know what I mean?
Totally.
But you could even try so scarcity might not be a bad angle here. You could try, but we're going to be in town for the X conference, and I saw you guys were sponsoring it, figured it would be good to drop by your table. Or more scarcity, you could say, but we are wrapping up development on this, and I put together an idea, an option that you may want to consider while it's like, you know what I mean? You would need a good reason why you're coming back to this person, and then I think it works.
Here's the typical re-engagement type of email I receive, which I don't reply to, obviously. Is like, hey, I'm Susie and I'm picking up John's leads.
Okay. So this is great. This is, okay. Why would Susie write, hey, I'm picking up John's lead? I think it's because John wrote a breakup email saying,
exactly,
this is the last time I'm going to approach you. I just thought you'd be interested in our electric tea bags, and it's right. If you're not interested, okay, I'll take a hint. But if you don't reply, you'll never hear. Yeah. So what you're saying is an interesting way to still come back to that person. This is another individual, right?
Yeah.
What do you think of that tactic?
It's all right. At the end of the day, it's timing, right? If I wasn't interested in, outsource development 6 months ago, I may still be interested in 6 months later down the line, right? So you never really know. It depends on where the business is at and where the, founder's mentality is at. If you're reaching out to the founder, like where they are in their personal growth and profile. So I guess it depends, really. I'm not necessarily opposed to that. I just think like there is better ways, right? It's just like the sort of lazy default way of doing it.
Right. I'll buy that. I'm not strongly opposed to it, simply because I'm sure it does work.
That's my point.
It will make leads comes in, but you're not limited to that. So if you think that's that's the only thing you have at your disposal, you may consider being a little bit more careful when you write breakup emails in the future. Just leaving them out of a campaign until maybe you follow up again.
Plus, bear in mind that the breakup email doesn't need like, I'm stopping all communication with you. It could just be like simply like, hey, I think for this quarter, I'm going to stop here if you need me or whatever. And then you're re-engaged in the next quarter or whatever, right? It's not really like it's business. Really, it doesn't have to be final. Hey,
so that's good.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but one thing we actually didn't discuss is the it's funny I say I don't want to interrupt, but I do it anyway. We didn't discuss about like verifying emails, right? If 6 months has happened, I'd say like re-verify your emails, right? Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of bounces.
Great point. It's a great point, Jeremy. I've got one more addition to the copy side of how you should be following up. We talked about how to start it off. We've talked about a PS. Towards the end, though, like the call to action, I would definitely be experimenting with different levels of commitment, particularly backing up a bit in the sales process. Maybe they weren't
Oh, that's a good one.
ready for your sharper CTA. That's like, let's hop on a call. But it could be that 6 months down the road, you approach them and say, tell me how you're approaching this problem. I'm just trying to learn and
Sure.
take care of our market a little bit better. That may work. Just so not only changing the CTA from call to more info to detail, back it all the way up and maybe just kind of take a learning angle and see if that gets your foot in the door.
I love that. One thing that we did specifically for our campaign is basically we were offering a certain value to some people, like, hey, we'll do a shout in our newsletter, for example, as one of the value. And then on the re-engagement, we say, hey, this quarter we're doing this type of initiatives, like we are doing XYZ again, like would this one be more interesting to you? Like, right, we're kind of happy because the one we're already starting working with, we keep on like building up like step by step the sort of like offering, but we also find they start with this step, kind of thing. So it's different things. Maybe they will value this more. That's sort of like
that's a great point. It's a great point. Yeah, I think we covered this pretty well, Jeremy. Is there any other topics or stones that we haven't turned over here?
I don't know, probably hundreds, but if you go to course.quickmail.io, we have a great course with a lot of all of those topics, pretty well packaged in different sections for over 8 weeks, I believe. And I don't know, you said it better than me.
No. It's really simple. We put it together for someone who was looking to very quickly and in a structured format build their cold email skills and get to a point where they have a partially automated, partially outsourced lead generation machine, if you will, that's bringing their business leads so that they're spending more of their time on the phone closing, meeting with potential customers, demoing, and less time with that prospecting and personalization and writing and all this like list building stuff that is very important, but a serious time crunch if you don't have the things set up properly. So this course is from like start to finish. Let's go talk about mindset. Let's talk about sales research. Let's talk about copywriting and prospecting and more copywriting and where does deliverability fit in? Yeah. How do you automate this stuff? Where do you find someone that can come and help you without breaking the bank and end up with, in about 8 weeks, a program. It's just like
8 weeks and you can replace me or Jack on the podcast.
Exactly your own podcast. Right. You don't have to listen to exactly right. I mean, it's certainly I wouldn't say Cliff Note version because there's a lot of stuff in there, but if you're willing to actually sit down, watch the course modules, do the exercises, you're going to get deliverables, action items each week. You will end up with a best practice way to get people to respond, the right people to respond to your cold emails. So it's basically like if you're thinking about doing consulting and you just want like something you can hand off to a team, save some money, the course is just going to guide you there. Course.quickmail.io. Word. Okay. Awesome cast, Jeremy.
Yeah, good cast. Thanks, Jack.
Cool. See you next time.